So today, we are going to continue with our theme of faith. And then we're going to move into a few character studies for the few weeks after this. But today, how to be and not to do. How to be and not to do. We've looked over the last few months, actually, about aspects of the life of the Christian faith, different aspects. And one main theme that runs through each message is one of faith. Last week, we took a closer look at faith, mustard seed faith, what it is and what it isn't. Before that, we looked at the book of Galatians and how the church had turned the teachings of Jesus into commands to follow rather than guides they were meant to be, moving us to lives of faith. We talked about faith as intimate trust in God, not intellectual assent. Faith is not believing something to be true or not. That can be the fruit or the evidence, the result of faith. But faith is not intellectual assent to a statement, but intimate trust in a living God. And we looked at our propensity to turn the fruit of the Spirit into commands to follow, abandoning Christian faith for lives of legalistic effort. Today we will look at practical applications of faith, how to identify areas of our life where faith should be applied, and how to do it. Keep in mind, the way we should behave, the way we should act towards others, the inner disposition of the heart, all of those things are the result of what's inside of us. Consider the words of Jesus when he says, "It is what comes from inside that defiles you. For from within, out of a person's heart, come evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, wickedness, deceit, lustful desires, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. All these vile things come from within. They are what defile you." Matthew 7:20-23. See, Jesus constantly calls us to look at the inside if we are to truly recognize our spiritual condition. He says things like, "Clean the inside of the cup, and the outside will be clean also." Matthew 23. He says, "Make the tree good, and the fruit will be good." Matthew 12. "You're like whitewashed tombs. You look good on the outside, but on the inside, you're full of death and decay." Matthew 23. See, it's not the outward things we do that defile us, because outward behavior is just a manifestation from within. Furthermore, we can model our outward behavior to look like it's supposed to, but never deal with what's really going on inside, our desires, the very place that Jesus is calling us to pay attention to. It is out of a person's heart that come such things, he says. Now that word heart does not mean the organ that pumps blood, of course, but rather the heart means the very source of our desires and dignity. The word that Jesus uses for heart is the Greek word cardia. It actually means volitional desire. It means desire producer that makes us tick. It means our desired decisions that establish who we really are. It's from the Greek interlinear word study. See, everything we do, every thought, every action, all stem from the desires within us. Everything. And notice that Jesus says, out of a person's heart come evil thoughts. It is our desires that drive our very thoughts. All the things we know to be wrong are manifestations of our desires. All the things that we shouldn't be and all of the things that we should be are the results of our inner life. We are constantly trying to fulfill our desires, resist our desires, and defend our dignity. As a result, we live lives that are frustrating, stressful, indulgent, ascetic, harmful to ourselves, and harmful to others. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Anybody experience some of that? Yeah. Glad I'm not the only one. And the answer isn't to try harder to do what we are supposed to. That's just frustrating. And in the end, the result is a hardened heart, because it requires us to push down, ignore our desires, making us rigid and unloving. Love flows from the place of our desires. Love becomes our desires. We cannot harden this part of our lives, for it quenches our ability to love. God is love, and as we connect with Him by faith, the need for self-protective behavior and desire denial is no longer needed. When we connect with God, our very desires, this core part of our being, changes. This is an inner transformation, literally a change of heart. We looked at this in the book of Galatians, where it says, what counts is whether we have been transformed into a new creation. Galatians 6:15. This is the call to be, not to do. If we are to become the people God has called us to be, we must move from doing to being. So here's an example of doing. We'll read a list of godly behavior and endeavor to do it. This is the doer. So take something like the sayings of Jesus, where he says, do not judge others, or blessed are the peacemakers, blessed are the merciful, forgive 70 times 7, right? Or how about another list? The fruit of the Spirit in Galatians chapter 5. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, right? We read these lists. Another good list that we read is the love list in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Love is patient, it's kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, does not dishonor others, it's not self-seeking, not easily angered, etc. So the doer reads such lists, reads those qualities of character, and endeavors to follow them, tries to do them. They read, do not judge, so we try not to judge, right? They read, blessed are the peacemakers, so we try to make peace. Be merciful, so we be merciful. Forgive, so we forgive. We read the fruit of the Spirit is the same thing, gentleness, kindness, self-control. So we try to be joyful, peaceful, kind, and gentle. We read love is patient, doesn't boast, is not proud, not easily angered. So we try to do these things, right? This is the doer. And we're all in this boat. We all do this. Every one of us tries to be a good person, to follow, to emulate such qualities of good character. And it is important to do that. It's a good thing that we try to be kind when we don't feel like being kind. I think that's important. It's important to exercise gentleness when we feel like being anything but gentle. But that's the doer. And that is not where Jesus has called us. Jesus has a much higher calling for us. The reality is, I don't need Jesus to do those things, to try to be kind. As a society, we don't need God or Jesus to know that do to others what you'd have them do to you is good advice, right? We don't need God for that. It's common sense. But Jesus offers us so much more, calls us to something so much more than the life of the doer. He has not called us to a life of constant frustration, resisting our desires that continually rage inside of us. Jesus has called us to a change within that enables us to be these things, not just imitators and doers. For out of our being, we will naturally do these things. Our heart experiences a change. Our desires change. We become what God has called us to be. When I am love, my desires, the very seat of my being changes. The evidence, the result, the fruit is I become loving. I am joyful. I am peaceful. I naturally am kind and gentle. I simply am self-controlled. I don't have to try to be these things. They flow naturally from the inside. And when I am connected with God, the evidence of His Spirit in my life is love, joy, peace, kindness, gentleness, etc. I don't have to try to do these things. I am these things. I move from doing to being. They flow naturally from within, from my heart. My desires have changed. There's a transformation within that results in a change in our outward behavior. This is the transformation that comes with faith. How do I apply such faith? How do I recognize I need to apply faith? It all comes right back to our heart, that seat of our desires and our dignity. This is the cause of all of our behavior and our thought life. Why would I want to do something I know I shouldn't? Has anybody here ever wanted to do something you know you shouldn't? Hee. We're all like, oh yeah. Of course. Why would I want to do something that I know that I shouldn't? Remember, Jesus said, it is from within, from one's heart, that come all of these things. I am jealous or covet because I believe I need something to make me happy. I've set my heart on something to make me happy. I do not believe God is the source of my happiness. I will not forgive because I do not believe God will defend my dignity. I will get revenge because I do not believe God is there for me. I will take care of it myself. In our relationships, we become demanding of others because we look to them to fulfill us. We look to them to make us happy. We do not believe God can fulfill us more than the joy we get from another person. And when they fail, we get angry at them, or we manipulate them in order to get what we want from them. We are greedy. We feel we need the material things of this life to be happy, to be fulfilled. So we cheat, or will lie, or we steal to get what we want. We push other people down in order to get what we want, or to feel better about ourselves. We are insecure. We do not believe we are loved, and therefore demand it from others, distorting our relationships. All because we do not believe that God is the real source of our fulfillment. All because we do not trust He truly loves us. Our desires are set on getting the things in this life in order to feel complete and successful. To truly believe God is enough, even more than the wonderful things in life He has created for us to enjoy. Wow, that's faith. That's tough faith. This is the intimate trust that God has called us to. It has nothing to do with doctrine. It has everything to do with our desires and our dignity inside. Pride comes from a relentless pursuit to defend our own dignity. I have to prove my worth. I have to assert my worth, for I do not believe God is enough. And we even take the good things in life and have set our desires on them for fulfillment. They have replaced God. I look to my marriage to make me fulfilled. Well, marriage is a good thing. But when I look to it to feel fulfilled and satisfied in my life, I have replaced God with marriage as a source of my happiness. This is idolatry. When we look to another person to fulfill us, we will always be disappointed. It is unrealistic to expect a person to replace what God was meant to do. Yet, of all things in this world that God created, we will look to other people to fulfill us. Why? Why would we do that? Why do we especially look to other people to fulfill us? I believe that it's because people have the greatest potential to satisfy us, the greatest potential out of anything in creation, because we are made in God's image. You and I are the closest thing to God that we will find on earth. There's something godlike in every one of us. We are created in God's image. Therefore, we see the potential to be fulfilled in a relationship with other people. The closest thing to God we'll find on earth is another human being, because we are the God image bearers. Therefore, we look to other people to get what we think we need. Yet we will always be ultimately disappointed. I think a good example of this is Abraham. What did Abraham long for the most in life? A son, exactly. His deepest longing was to have a son, and God gave him his desire. Abraham's son Isaac was a gift from God. And then God tested him to see if he had replaced God on the throne of his heart with his son. God asked Abraham to give him up. You see, even the gifts God gives us can usurp God off the throne of our heart. Good things meant to be blessing become our idols of worship. Work can be a blessing, but when I look to it to feel fulfilled, successful, to feel good about myself, I have taken something good and replaced God with it. We are dedicated to feeling good about ourselves. That is unbelief. As a result of not believing God is my source for fulfillment, for feeling alive, for being complete, I look to all the things in this world to do that job instead. And we become attached to this world and unable to connect with God. My desires are set on what I want, and we live our lives in desperate attempts to fulfill ourselves, or frustrating lives of denying ourselves. But God's called us to have faith in Him, to believe He is the source of all we need. This is intimate trust, faith. As we genuinely experience God, we are fulfilled. We need nothing in this world. We are free to enjoy all of God's good creation without enjoying or without needing it. We're free to engage in relationships without needing anything from another person. We are free to love. When we believe, truly trust God is the source of my fulfillment, more than the deepest longings of our hearts, only then are we free to love without conditions. There is a transformation from within. And without this transformation, it is impossible to fulfill the one and only commandment Jesus gave us, which is what? To love one another. The teaching of Jesus calls attention to what's going on inside of us. So let's move from being doers, trying to do what we believe is right, to being, experiencing a transformation within that comes by faith. Amen.